Hello, class. I'm Jasmine French, and I guess what I'll first start out by doing is just introducing myself. I wasn't able to do that when we did the first Adobe Connect session. I couldn't get my microphone to work, so I'll just start out talking a little bit about myself so you guys are familiar with who I am. Um, I graduated from the University of Kentucky in May of 2012. I have a bachelor's degree in Spanish, um, and I studied linguistics while I was there as well. I minored in that. I just thought it'd be important for me to share that with you all since a lot of what we've been doing this semester deals with linguistics. I find it very interesting, the study of languages. Language is always changing. There's always some type of hypothesis or something new that's coming out that just kind of gets us all thinking about language and how acquiring a second language comes about. So, um, I chose to write my paper on immersion education. Um, I was actually in an immersion program for a very long time, from first grade all the way until 8th grade. I was in a program here in Lexington. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Maxwell Elementary, Bryan Station Middle, Bryan Station High School, the first immersion program in Lexington. That's the one I was in. I just thought it would be a good way for me to kind of share my own experience compared to what others think about learning a second language as a whole. In the paper, I just kind of started out talking about like what an immersion program is, just kind of defining it. I talk about why learning a second language at the elementary level, in my opinion, is easier. I also discuss kind of the benefits of learning a second language, why immersion programs are the best way to accomplish a second language. So that's just kind of a rundown on what I wrote about. I defined an immersion program as being it's just a language program in public school systems that allows a student to acquire a second language. The goal basically of an immersion education is to develop proficiency in that second language. So in the program that I was in, we did half the day was strictly in Spanish. Everything you did had to do with Spanish, and then the second half of the day was strictly English. So when I was in the Spanish half of the day, we weren't allowed to talk. Once we got up in levels, like in middle school and everything, we weren't allowed to talk in English. We actually got participation points deducted from our grade for talking in English while we were in the Spanish half. So that was interesting. But just basically, an immersion program just allows you to acquire a second language. Like, you are basically embedded in the language. All of my teachers, all of my Spanish teachers were from a different country. I had teachers from all over, Mexico, Venezuela, Spain, Uruguay, just all over. So that was really interesting. And then next, just how our textbook talks about the critical period hypothesis, and how it is believed that after you reach a certain age, which I think it's like around puberty, language learning becomes a greater challenge. I agree with that a lot. I guess it's just, I think that children seem to be more focused as well. I'm not saying that adult learners can't learn a second language. It's just that it's a little bit harder. They've passed the stage where they are really focused and into school, and you don't really have to study at the elementary level. I know that a lot of the Spanish that I know comes from me being in the immersion program. Once I got to high school, I didn't really learn anything new. All of my high school classes were basically review. So everything that I know as far as my second language goes comes from the immersion program. I do believe that that adults can learn the language, but they have to study. They have to give time. They have to do research, memorization, everything like that. And then next, let's see. talked about why it's important to learn at an early age, and what is an immersion program. And then next, I just kind of talk about how diverse our communities are becoming. The United States, for example, is becoming populated with several groups of people. Just the world is becoming more bilingual, I guess we will say, and it's just really important to be able to communicate with those people from all over around us. I guess the big difference in an immersion learning program, there's a big difference in immersion learning and just taking a few foreign language classes. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Sorry about that. Being in an immersion program allows you to, hear that language, that second language being spoken, throughout the school day versus just taking a few foreign language classes. Like, I've got, my foreign language class 2 times a week or 3 times a week for, a certain amount of time each day. Whereas in immersion programs, you're every day in the same classroom, learning that language. So I just guess, immersion learning is better in that sense. You are actually emerging in the learning. And then next, I talk about the benefits of learning a second language and becoming bilingual. Immersion programs do have a lot of positives. It allows you to become, I think, a better overall learner. I think immersion learners, or people that, from my experience, that have come out of the programs, have a better understanding of people with different cultural backgrounds than their own, just by having teachers that are from all over with different accents, different beliefs, the way they dress. You just have a better understanding of different people because you've been exposed to it. And then also talk a little bit about dual education. Like, not only are you learning the things that you're supposed to learn, when you're in elementary school, when you're in middle school, and so on, you're also getting the width of a second language. So it's kind of like a dual education. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. And I also had the opportunity to interview one of the teachers at Maxwell Elementary here in Lexington, Kentucky. Her name is Miss Hicks. She's been there a long time. She was there when I was there, so I was pretty excited that she was interested in letting me interview her. And what I'll do here is I'll just read a couple of the questions that I asked her and then some of her answers. I won't read them all. I know you guys don't want to hear me just read off of my paper. But she's been there for a long time, and I think it's just important to get the input of teachers who are actually in the program. She's been in the program for years, and she's had the opportunity to see several groups of children come in and out, and she just has, the background of, the groups that have been in the program. Let's see. All right, the first question here, I just asked her, what are the benefits of teaching at an immersion school? Any positives, any negatives? Her response was, I obviously love teaching in an immersion school. I think it is a wonderful environment for kids to have an experience that no other school can provide. Students have a global awareness through their personal experience with teachers from all over the world. They learn 2 languages, which is such an asset in the 21st century. She says that the students that graduate through the program have opportunities afforded to them that no other students receive due to their proficiency in 2 languages. She also says that I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. I think that immersion programs can be overwhelming or very challenging if a child is struggling in their first language. However, all kids benefit from the development of 2 languages at such a young age. I thought that was a great answer. I love that answer because it was basically kind of the same things I was, saying at the beginning of my paper. And then another one, let's see, which one will I do? I just asked her, how does teaching at an immersion school affect your teaching? Her response was, I think it affects my teaching mainly from the time constraint. Having each group of students only half of the day can be challenging to fit all of the information in those few hours. You truly learn to get the meaningful, power-packed lessons that hit and yield the most, and learn to integrate and weave the standards most effectively into every minute, every small group, every whole group, every activity. So that was a good answer too. Just basically saying like, yes, it can be challenging. It's still beneficial. You know, you only have half of the day to teach everything you have to teach and, you know, get all of your curriculum in. But there's that. And then I'll do one more question. I said, do you think that children learn languages better at a younger age? And she says, it's been proven that the younger the better. And I've seen it. Our program used to start in first grade, and when we were able to add kindergarten, it greatly advanced the students as language learners so much earlier. So I know that like before they could only do, like you couldn't start the program until you were in first grade. They had it to where you go to kindergarten somewhere else, and if you got accepted into the program, then you wouldn't start until first grade. So she just basically said that it's a lot easier to do that. She's seen, you know, so many different groups of children come in and out, and she just thinks that it's very beneficial to learn at an earlier age. That is basically all that I have. So it was really fun doing this paper because it's something that I was interested in, and I was able to give my input and just kind of do research and found different hypotheses and opinions by other people that, you know, study language, and then I got the opportunity to interview an old teacher of mine, so that was really fun. And that is basically all I have. Thanks.